Have you ever known someone in a terrible relationship and wondered why on earth can't they just walk away? Have you ever been in a relationship and felt trapped but not really understood why? You're not alone. May is Domestic and Family Violence Awareness Month here in Australia, and everyone needs to know and understand what abuse looks like so we can recognise it in our own relationships or in the relationships of those we love. Knowledge is power. Hello my darlings, how are we all today? I hope you're all well. You may have realised from the intro that today is not a true crime case. So if that's what you were here for or hoping for, I'm sorry. There will be a new case out very shortly. I'd love for you to stick around, but if you don't, that's fine. I'll catch you on the next true crime case. But today we're going to be discussing the barriers to leaving an abusive relationship. I'm sure we can all agree that leaving an abusive relationship is quite often easier said than done. But it's hard for people on the outside looking in. It's frustrating when all they want is to be able to rescue the person they love, and that person seems to be fighting against being saved. What people need to understand is that a victim who stays in an abusive relationship is not weak or stupid. They are constantly running their risk assessments every day to stay safe. Abuse is about control, and for a victim to get out, they need to be able to overcome all the obstacles that have been mounted up in their way over the course of the relationship. The abuser may have financial control, they have generally isolated the victim, and they may have even threatened the safety of the victim's family or their own children. That's why it's never okay to ask, why didn't you just leave? Why did she stay? Or anything else of the sort. So often victims say that they just want the abuse to end. They still love their partner. That's why they keep going back time and again, hoping and trusting that this time will be different, that this time they will change and they can live the life they planned in the beginning of their relationship. Because if you know anything about being love bombed or courted by a narcissist or emotional abuser, you will know that they will sell you on them being the answer to a life you could only dream of. It takes victims, on average, about 7 times of leaving and returning before finally leaving for good. Relationship abuse is an insidious thing. A lot of the time, people don't even know that what they're dealing with day after day would be considered abuse. I know I didn't. It sneaks up on you and the abuser blames you for it all. And eventually you believe it. So you don't see what they're doing to you, only what they've gaslit you into believing. I can only hope that the education I'm putting out there around what domestic abuse looks like in real life can help some people who need it and their loved ones to support them while they navigate getting away safely. There are many factors that keep us trapped in these situations, and a big one that many people who haven't been through an abusive relationship don't understand or realize is so debilitating is the fear. The fear of the repercussions. Leaving is the most dangerous time in any abusive relationship. Abusers do not like losing control of their victims. So the minute you're even thinking about walking away from them, they will begin to scramble to regain control over you. Sometimes at any and all costs. So yes, the number one barrier to leaving is fear. If the end of the relationship guaranteed the end of the abuse or the violence, then it would be a no-brainer. But more often than not, that's not the case. In fact, the violence usually escalates. Most domestic violence homicides occur once the victim has left, attempted to leave, or has threatened to leave. Victims live in fear of what will happen to themselves and or their children if they try to leave. And having been isolated, they're very often without a safe place to go or a support system to help them stay safe. And even if they do have those things there, sometimes they just don't believe they do. Guilt is another huge factor. Victims have been conditioned to take the blame for everything in the relationship. So this can be a hard pattern to break We feel guilty for breaking up the family, or that our partner will be left all alone. We feel bad for them. We feel guilty for pressing charges and ruining their lives, when in reality, their own actions have brought about these things. And we know, logically, that this is the case, but we still feel bad. We still feel guilty and like we need to protect them. Economic dependence is another major obstacle to overcome when you're looking at leaving. Financial abuse is very common in abusive relationships. The victim quite often doesn't have access to their own money, which makes it very hard to make plans for a future when you know you have nowhere to go and no way to support yourself. They'll often not have a bank account, or at least one that's not a joint account with their abuser. It's not just the getting out and getting set up. A lot of the time, an abuser will convince their victim that they're useless and there's no way that they could ever survive without them. So a victim has to not only overcome the fact that they don't have any financial ability to support themselves and potentially their children, but also the psychological damage done by the constant erosion to their self-esteem. Then there is the children. Despite the devastating effects witnessing abuse can have on children, victims often feel that they don't want their children to grow up without both parents. They often believe they're hiding the abuse from the children and that their children aren't affected. Victims may also fear that if they leave, the abusive partner will get custody of the children. They have probably been told this many times. Many adults who abuse their partners also abuse their children. Victims may stay as they feel that that's the only way they can protect their children from abuse. The children are never better off for having an intact family if they're subjected to abuse. And the studies show that children who witness abuse are affected in the same way as those who have had the abuse inflicted upon them. And this is a really hard one because with the way the law is structured, parents have rights. And it seems that a lot of the time, parents' right, regardless of whether or not they're abusive, their rights come before the children's right to be safe, feel safe, be safe. And that's scary. And then there is straight up isolation. Nobody knows what you're going through. There's nobody there to help you. Nowhere you can go to feel safe or catch a breath. Your abuser has stripped away your family ties, your friends. They've made sure you don't or can't work. It can feel overwhelming when you feel like there's absolutely no one in your corner. But there is help available. Shelters and crisis centres understand what you're dealing with, and they are the best places to start when trying to build a support system. Please know, I understand that it's not easy to leave, but it is possible. Everyone deserves to live a happy life in which they feel safe. If you know someone in an abusive relationship, don't push them to leave. What you know of the relationship is only the tip of the iceberg. They know their abuser best and the threat they pose. These victims have also been controlled and not allowed to think for themselves, sometimes for years. They don't need someone else telling them what to do. They will likely get angry and push back at you. It's safe to do so with you, unlike in their other relationship. They need your support to find their own way through this time. So as frustrating as it can be, please don't give up. We, the victims, are not trying to be difficult. Keep checking in unless they tell you it makes them unsafe. Do what you can to make sure they know that they can always come to you. You may just be the only person they can turn to. Anyway, that's all from me, my friends. If anything I've discussed today has given you cause for concern about your own relationship or that of a loved one, please reach out for help. There's a list of resources in the description box below. If you find this content valuable, please don't forget to like and subscribe. But until next time, please take care of yourselves and be kind to one another.